Everyone, strap in. Episode 1130 just smashed into our brains, and it didn't just tell us about God Valley, it ripped the history books wide open and basically rewrote everything we thought we knew. This ain't just some flashback, this is the lore bomb to end all lore bombs, so God Valley, right? It's not some legendary battlefield, it's a hunting ground. The world nobles are explaining the rules for their native hunting competition. Yeah, you heard that right. Among the rabbits, that's what they're calling actual people. There are 13 super rare rabbits, worth 10,000 points each, and 150 rare rabbits. Any one-shot kill. Bam. Excellent bonus and luxurious prizes for the champion. These sickos are so eager. Some even try to get a head start, but get told, hold up, the hunt begins in an hour. Give the people time to run and hide. Can you believe the cruelty? People are running desperately for their lives, begging it's all a dream, screaming out that it's not right for humans to treat other humans as their toys. This is dark, bro. Meanwhile, over at Marineford, things are heating up. Fleet Admiral Kong contacts Monkey D. Garp, who's on vacation. Kong wants Garp at Hachinosu, but he won't say why, because if something happened, he'd be in trouble. Garp, sharp as ever, figures Kong's talking about the world nobles' field trip and reminds him, I told you many times not to mess with Hachinosu. Don't underestimate the Rock's pirates wanting to take back the island's treasure. Garp's even like, what are you scared of if you got escorts? But then Kong drops the ultimate name bomb, Roger is involved. Garp immediately declares, I'm going. But plot twist, the Rock's pirates had already left Hachinosu, they're on their way. Back on God Valley, while this sick competition is underway, Emporio Ivankov starts rallying people. He's yelling, none of us will escape this game alive. And when it's all said and done, these events will be hidden from the history books. Some people actually believe they'd go free if they survived 3 weeks, but Ivankov's like, that's a lie to give you false hope to make the game more interesting. So his message, if you want to live, you need to move right now. With help from a shark fish man, Ivankov is freed from his chains. And then Ginny reveals their ticket out. 2 of the competition's prizes are going to be their means of escape the oh no me. Model Seryu Kaido's dragon fruit, people, and the Nikyu no meat Kuma's paw fruit. Ivankov's mind is blown. With these 2 devil fruits, we can make it off the island and pass the marine blockade. But the problem, the fruits are in the center of the island. But Ginny, this absolute queen, reveals she's skilled in thieving, wiretapping, and broadcasting, and all this info had been leaked to the outside world 2 weeks ago. She was positive someone heard it. When Ginny says they need a decoy for this plan to work, young Kuma volunteers, citing his strong physiology would protect him, and he'd rather risk his own life than others. Ivankov accepts but straight up says, I won't let Kuma die either. The stakes are insane. And then it's pure, unadulterated chaos. The Rock's pirates and other pirate crews start attacking the Marines, catching them off guard. Rox himself orders his crew to seize the treasure, and look at this lineup making their way onto the island: Edward Newgate's Whitebeard Dishiki, Buckingham Stussy, Charlotte Linland's Big Mom, Kaido, Gloriosa, and pretty soon, Roger and his pirate crew did too. The God's Knights are trying to defend the world nobles, and eventually, Garp and his soldiers arrive to back up the Marines, leading to an all-out conflict. This is legendary. During the fight, Ivankov and Kuma manage to acquire the 2 devil fruits. Yes, but before Ivankov can eat the Oonomi model Seryu, Big Mom slams him into a wall and takes the fruit. No. She tries to take the Nikyu no Mai as well, but Ivankov yells at Kuma, quickly eat it and save yourself. Right after Kuma eats the fruit, he's attacked by Jagersia Saturn, a Gorosi. Saturn tells Kuma that as a member of the Buccaneers, he exists only to live and die as a slave, as decided by the course of history. But Kuma even then stands up to Saturn. He tells him it doesn't make sense for people to be born important or a slave. He proclaims he will emulate Nika and use his power to save the weak and defenseless. Saturn's chilling reply, that is why Kuma and his people would be eliminated. Afterwards, the events on God Valley vanished into the darkness of history, wiped clean. But despite the chaos, Kuma, Ivankov, and Ginny were able to escape God Valley along with more than 500 other people. A miracle. The 3 went into hiding in Sorbet Kingdom and stayed in the church that Kuma's parents once managed. Ivankov realized that no information about God Valley had been revealed to the public, aside from Garp's now legendary reputation. Kuma starts praying for a while, stating he wished he could have saved more lives, but Ivankov and Ginny tell him he had done more than enough, and that Kuma's hands had brought freedom to the people, calling them the hands of liberation, the Feels Man. After that, Ivankov decides to head out on his own, while Kuma and Ginny remained in Sorbet, with the 3 hoping to see each other again. Ginny tells Kuma that from that day forward, she would be his big sister since she was older than him. The 2 began chopping wood to sell and make money. When Kuma was accosted by some kids who called him a monster for his size, Ginny beat them up in his defense. And Kuma apologized and used his powers to push their pain out of their bodies, much to their joy. This kid is already a legend. That night, the 2 were eating dinner, with Kuma remarking on how much of a big eater Ginny turned out to be. The 2 then broke down into tears of joy over their freedom freedom and newfound happiness. You just have to feel for them. Alright, that's the play. By play, a ride in itself. But now, we dive deep. We unlock the secrets Oda just laid bare. First up, the God Knights. We see them, and it's unknown if all of them are celestial dragons like Garling, but one of them mentions they want to seize the trophies for the Manmir family. Boom. That's evidently the name of another celestial dragon family. This means we finally have half the names of the founders of the world government Nerona, Nefertari, Donkixote, Jay Garcia, Marcus, Topman, Ethamberon, Shepard Figarland, and now Menmayer. Keep track of those names, people. Among the other God Knights, there's a lot of bizarre designs. This girl with a big hat bearing the world government logo, a kid with a gas mask, one wearing a ruff around his neck. Now, the treasure of Hachinosu. We cut to Marineford, where Kong has a call with Garp. This confirms Kong was in a high-ranking position already during the era of the rocks. Potentially fleet admiral already by the way he gives out orders. Having lasted across all of Roger's era, all the way until the Great Pirate era. This dude's been around. But in his dialogue with Kong, Garp mentions something very interesting. When Kong says he can't exactly mention the details of the human hunt, likely due to the Celestial Dragons wanting to keep such a thing private, Garp jokingly refers to it as the Celestial Dragon School trip, but then he follows up with, "I told you not to poke the beehive that is Hachinosu. You underestimate them. That thing is the treasure of Pirate Island after all." Of course they'd come to take it back. The way Garp mentions it, it appears that the Marines sought trouble with the rocks by trying to seize a certain item from Hachinosu that is considered the Pirate Island's national treasure. The context seems to implicate that said treasure is now at God Valley, as even some of the Rock's pirates bring up retrieving a certain item. Particularly among them Shiki and Big Mom say that whoever gets to it first gets to keep it, but Kaido remarks that it would be pointless in Big Mom's hands. This all seems to point to the idea that it's referring to Kaido's devil fruit, which Big Mom would successfully steal from Ivankov and later feed to Kaido since she already possesses a devil fruit or one of the other fruits in possession of the Celestial Dragons. Interestingly, Captain John also makes mention of wanting to make it his treasure, which makes me wonder if it will tie in any way with his actual legendary treasure. After all, beyond the dragon fruit and the paw fruit, there were 4 other chests among the prizes. What were in those? Still, a connection between Xebec and dragons is pretty fascinating, especially when we take into account the connection there is between emu and dragons, with how the celestial dragons are named after the creatures, are fascinated with them, asking Vegapunk to create artificial dragons, and the void century ties between emu and dragons in general. And since Rock's D Xebec wanted to become king of the world and literally take Emu's position, one can only wonder why the two of them appeared to be so incredibly similar and linked together. This is deep lore, people. The Rock's pirates. Things quickly escalate as the Rock's pirates invade the island, with Xebec himself leading the charge as he gets a few spoken lines, though doesn't appear on screen. And among the Rock's pirates, we have what is an incredibly stacked all-stars cast. First, Whitebeard, who was 36 at the time. He expressed frustration with Xebec's recklessness and how everyone wanted to be captain, which can already be seen reflected here. On his hat, we even see a prototype version of his Jolly Roger that is different from his current one. Cool detail. Next is Miss Buckingham Stussy, the original pirate from whom the current Stussy was cloned. She's getting very cozy with Whitebeard as she would claim to be his lover in the future. Currently, the original Stussy has aged, while the clone has remained pretty identical to this Stussy here, supposedly due to her succubus fruit stopping her from aging. At this time, Stussy was 38 years old, and soon after this incident and the disbandment of the crew, she would begin freeloading at Mads, which would lead to the creation of her clone. And interestingly, her kid Weevil, the supposed kid with Whitebeard, would be born 35 years ago, 3 years after God Valley. The timelines are lining up. Next is Big Mom, who is currently 38 here, wielding Prometheus in hand already. As we were told, she was able to get the dragon fruit for Kaido, for which she considers him to owe her a debt of gratitude. Similarly, Kaido here is 21, having spent 6 years on the crew already, a young beast. After him is Golden Lion Shiki, making his first proper full appearance in the actual manga. The antagonist of Strong World was a historically famous pirate at the time. He appears to have already eaten his fruit at this time. As he states, "I'll send you all flying," which may not be a hyperbole, but meant quite literally. And next is quite the curveball as Gloriosa is revealed to be a member of the Rock's pirates. Yes, as a reminder, Gloriosa was the Empress of Amazon Lily and captain of the Kuja pirates many years back. The one who succeeded her was Shakuyaku, Rayleigh's current wife and owner of Shaky's ripoff bar. The one after her is an unnamed empress who ended up dying of love sickness, which was then followed by Hancock. Gloriosa mentioned how all empresses in these 4 generations were afflicted with love sickness, though only the one before Hancock died of it. In Shaky's case, it was possibly Rayleigh. but I wonder if in Gloriosa's case it was one of the Rock's pirates instead. This is a huge reveal. Gloriosa's presence here would actually explain a lot of things, as it is quite likely that both Gloriosa and Shaky operated together as members of the Rock's pirates. In an SBs, Oda heavily teased readers about the fact that Shaky was an ex-member of the Rock's pirates. However, as she told us in the story, she quit piracy 42 years ago to open up a bar at the Sabati archipelago, which she continues to this day. This explains her absence from the God Valley incident, but Gloriosa likely continued on the crew for a few years more after the two operated together for some time. This further lines up with how it was mentioned that Shaky and Gloriosa worked together to help the Boa sisters return home after they escaped from Mary Jiwai's, still keeping in contact after all these years as not just former impresses, but also fellow crewmates. Mind blown. We also should give a shout out to Kurozumi Higurashi, as she was confirmed to have been involved with the Rocks during Kaido's flashback. Something that was also supported by the fact that she had the face of a young Shiki in her main No Mi repertoire, but she isn't present here, meaning that either she left the crew already or just isn't present for some other reason. Curious. Finally, adjacent to Gloriosa is Captain John, the famous pirate who left a legendary treasure behind but eventually died of mutiny when his crew killed him for not revealing the location of his treasure to anyone. His corpse was then later pillaged by Moria, who revived it as one of his general zombies. However, on the other hand, we have the Roger Pirates, Gol D at age 39, Silver's Rayleigh at age 40, Scoppergaban, Millet Pine Spencer, and Sunbell. Roger himself looks like a splitting image of Ace, and also appears to be wearing the famous straw hat still. He mentions how it's been 1 year, which could be in reference to how a year prior, Roger had made it to Lodestar, the final island of the Grand Line route, and had now continued his journey to locate the poneglyphs and find the real final island. Yet another third party joins the fray, however, as Garp's reinforcements hit the scene, with a 40-year-old Garp emitting hacky lightning from his fist in a battle that will crown him as hero of the Marines. Alongside his side, however, is the ever-loyal Bogard, who looks quite great despite his age. As this flashback indicates, he must be at least around 60 years old in the present. Kuma and Ginny, in one of the most tragic and emotional One Piece moments, even if off-screen for the death itself, the God Valley flashback skips ahead to Kuma's return to a normal life in the Sorbet Kingdom. Ivankov makes a quick mention of Morgans, who was already active at the World Economic newspaper at quite a young age too, since he would have been 15 back then. And as a cool detail, when Ivankov bids goodbye to Kuma and Ginny, Kuma mentions that he'll never forget a face like Ivankov's, which makes it all the more painful when in Marineford, Kuma has had all his memories erased and Ivankov begins crying at the fact that Kuma has forgotten his face and now treats him like an enemy. Oda, you monster! We get to find out that Kuma's family seemingly lived at a church, which finally explains to us why Kuma always carried a Bible with him. He appeared to be a man of religion, though I wonder if his adoration for the sun god was the focus of this religion or something complementary to it. However, Kuma's vision of religion seems to be more focused on a pious path of kindness and selflessness, as we see even him healing the wounds of other kids later on like some sort of miraculous prophet. As we expected, Ginny stays behind with Kuma to eventually become Bonnie's mother, and the two begin a new humble life in the Sorbet Kingdom. Ginny usually speaks with the pronoun uchai, which is common to the Kansai region of Japan, giving her a very friendly speech pattern, and she refers to Kuma with the adorable nickname of Kumashi. Kuma refers to her as a big eater, which is an allusion to Bonnie's epithet, with their hunger seemingly running in the family, foreshadowing level 9000. Together, the two, as in by two, I mean mostly Kuma, work hard gathering wood. This will result in Kuma becoming king and getting to raise Bonnie in the Sorbet Kingdom, before he would be driven out as a tyrant. Speaking of Bonnie though, interestingly we see two kids who decide to follow Kuma in this chapter, and these are fairly relevant as they'll eventually become members of Bonnie's crew, taking care of Kuma's daughter once she sets sail as a pirate to the ocean. Oda plans everything, Joy Boy's race. Before we wrap up, I want to bring up a detail regarding Kuma that arose during his confrontation with Saturn, as the Gorosei told Kuma that he was always meant to be born a slave, a concept that Kuma simply can't get behind being born right or wrong. Something fascinating is mentioned. Kuma tells him that just like Nika, he wants to become someone who can save people, and Saturn replies, that is exactly why your people must be erased. What this sentence seems to be implying is potentially the idea that the original Joy Boy user of the Void Century may in fact have been a buccaneer. That is the crime that their people brought to the world, bearing the user of the Nika fruit, which resulted in the first Joy Boy turned reality, which the world government would then condemn his entire race in order to avoid any other Joy Boy from arising ever again. This would make a lot of sense, as it would explain the mysterious hat found at Mary G-Wise. A lot of fans have often mistaken that hat for the hat of a giant, but that is sort of impossible as One Piece giants are way bigger. The hat would have to be at least 3 to 4 times its size to fit an actual 20 mems giant. However, it is still slightly larger than a normal human, but for a buccaneer, it would fit perfectly in their head. This might even explain better the name of the race, as evidently the ancient kingdom was closely tied with the concept of pirates, if not mostly composed by pirates. So it makes sense that the original Joy Boy was part of a race literally named after real pirates. This is a game-changing theory. Saturn witnessing Kuma mentioning wanting to be like Nika likely rose his suspicions again, but ultimately, the government is missing the fact that becoming Joy Boy by being chosen by the fruit isn't really something race-dependent. Becoming Joy Boy is not a matter of blood or birthright, a notion that Saturn clearly falls victim of because he believes all to be born right or wrong, with Kuma being born to be a slave and him being born to be great. But living up to the name of the character of Joy Boy is simply a matter of wishing to deliver liberation, to inherit the ancient will of freedom, and to be able to make such massive dreams a reality. Episode 1130 isn't just a flashback, it's a tectonic shift. Oda just dropped a volcano of lore. God Valley, the rocks, the God's Knights, Kuma's origin, Joy Boy's race. This episode didn't just recap history, it rewrote it, setting the stage for the final saga. My mind is blown. What was your biggest whiff moment? Let me know. This is Peak Fiction.